Have you ever watched a child spend 20 minutes trying to begin 5 minutes of homework? Not because they didn't understand it, not because they didn't want to do it, but because somehow getting started felt impossible. And then something unexpected happens. You sit beside them, you don't explain, you don't remind, you don't even help, you simply stay. And suddenly, they begin. Tonight on StJohn-On-Air, I want to talk about one of the simplest and perhaps least understood strategies many people with ADHD use. It's called body doubling. Despite the unusual name, it isn't about doing the work for someone. It's about making it easier for the brain to begin. So what is body doubling? Body doubling means having another person physically or sometimes virtually present while you work on a task. That person isn't there to supervise. They don't have to teach. Often they don't even need to speak. Their role is simply to share the space. Body doubling wasn't invented in a research laboratory. It emerged from the ADHD community itself as a practical strategy that many people found helpful. Although research specifically on body doubling is still limited, psychologists and clinicians suggest it fits well with what we know about ADHD, executive functioning, motivation, and co-regulation. Psychologist Dr. Barkley describes ADHD primarily as a disorder of self-regulation and executive functioning. The challenge often isn't knowing what needs to be done, it's translating intention into action. Sometimes the hardest step isn't finishing, it's starting. So how might body doubling help? Imagine trying to push a very heavy car. The first movement takes the greatest effort. Once the wheels begin turning, everything feels a little easier. Tasks often work the same way for ADHD brains. Psychologist Dr. Thomas Brown describes activation as one of the executive functions that can be particularly difficult for people with ADHD. Many people know exactly what they need to do. They generally want to begin, but their brain struggles to switch from intention into action. Having another person nearby can provide gentle structure, accountability, and emotional support that makes the first step feel more manageable. One possible explanation comes from Dr. Stephen Porges and his polyvagal theory. Although aspects of the theory remain debated among researchers, it highlights something many clinicians observe. Our nervous systems influence one another. Being near someone who is calm, predictable, and emotionally safe can help us feel calmer too. Children often regulate their emotions through relationships before they learn to regulate themselves independently. That might be one reason why sitting quietly beside a child sometimes works better than repeatedly calling instructions from another room. They're not borrowing your knowledge, they're borrowing your calm. One person who has spoken openly about body doubling is Jessica McCabe, creator of How to ADHD. Jessica has described how beginning important tasks alone can feel almost impossible. Yet simply working alongside another person, even if they are doing something completely different, can make overwhelming tasks feel manageable. Many adults with ADHD recognize themselves in that experience, and many parents recognize it in their children. What does body doubling look like? Sometimes it's surprisingly ordinary. A parent reads while a child completes homework. Two siblings sit quietly doing different activities. A teenager revises for exams while a friend studies online with the camera on. A couple works on separate household tasks in the same room. Nobody's supervising. No one is correcting. They're simply sharing the space. Sometimes that presence is enough. So why it can be especially helpful for children? Executive functions continue developing throughout childhood and adolescence. According to Dr. Barkley, children with ADHD often develop these skills more slowly than their peers. Because of this, adults often provide external executive support, helping children organize, begin, and sustain tasks until they gradually become more independent. Body doubling is one example of that support. Instead of saying, "Go and concentrate," we say, "I'll stay with you while you get started." Of course, there are challenges and limitations. Like every strategy, body doubling isn't a cure. One challenge is becoming too dependent on another person's presence. The goal isn't for someone else to always be there. The goal is to gradually build the child's own confidence and independence. Psychologist Dr. Greene, known for collaborative and proactive solutions, reminds us that effective support should build skills rather than simply demand performance. Body doubling should become a bridge, not a destination. Another challenge is misunderstanding. Adults sometimes think if they can work when I'm here, they must be lazy when I'm not. But that's like saying someone wearing glasses isn't short-sighted because they can see while wearing them. The support doesn't prove the difficulty wasn't real. It shows the support made a difference. Body doubling works best when it feels supportive, not controlling. Parents can accidentally become supervisors instead of companions. Children notice the difference. If every glance feels like an evaluation, the strategy loses much of its calming effect. Psychologist Dr. Deci, through self-determination theory, showed that autonomy is essential for intrinsic motivation. Body doubling works best when it communicates "I'm with you," not "I'm watching you." Let's take a look at 5 gentle ways to try body doubling. Number 1. Sit beside, not opposite. Sharing space often feels less like being monitored. 2. Talk less. Sometimes your calm presence is more powerful than constant reminders. 3. Begin together. The first few minutes are often the hardest. Once momentum builds, many children need less support. 4. Notice growing independence. Celebrate when your child starts a task without needing you. That's progress. And 5. Remember that presence is enough. You don't have to entertain, you don't have to motivate constantly. Sometimes simply being nearby is exactly what the brain needs. If you're raising a child with ADHD, perhaps the question isn't why can't they just start? Perhaps it's what kind of support helps their brain to begin. Sometimes that small shift changes everything. Body doubling isn't about creating dependence. It's about offering support while someone develops the skills to support themselves. After all, this is how every human being learns. Children learn to walk because someone first holds their hand. They learn language because someone speaks with them. They learn emotional regulation because someone first helps them regulate. Perhaps attention works in much the same way. Sometimes we don't need someone to solve the problem. We simply need someone to sit beside us while we begin. And maybe that's something all of us need from time to time. Good night. And if someone you love is finding it hard to start tomorrow, perhaps don't ask, "Why aren't you doing it yet?" Instead, quietly ask, "Would you like some company?" Sometimes those 5 words become the bridge between feeling overwhelmed and taking the very first snap. Good luck, my friend.